Hi students, let's discuss topic 5, malicious code, malware, which is part of topic 5.3.1, topic 5 Edexcel GCSE computer science. There are some main malicious software that we need to be aware of, and that are viruses, worms, which are slightly different, Trojan, Trojan, as in like Trojan horse, ransomware, and we'll put under here keyloggers. So keyloggers are fairly straightforward. If you've got a keyboard and you're typing something on the keyboard, a keylogger is software which hides on your computer. It hides, and it's recording your keystrokes, which is quite disconcerting because you could be revealing email passwords, banking pins, all sorts of other things. Okay, so a keylogger, pretty straightforward to remember. It's literally recording your keystrokes. Ransomware holds computer and more likely it encrypts your data with something you can't access. And we'll talk a little bit more about what encryption is in another video. Encrypting data. So essentially it is putting your computer at ransom until a fee is paid. And usually they want Bitcoin because it's hard to trace. So ransomware it's been quite prevalent. Lots of companies have been hit with ransomware, the NHS, you name it. Pretty much any big company has been hit by extortionate ransoms for their data. And of course, you know, these criminals, they do a lot of research, they do a lot of work beforehand, so they are really quite well prepared for negotiation preparations, and they know how much data might be worth. And sometimes they do get their money, unfortunately, which is why they carry on doing it. So ransomware is particularly nasty because you will not get access to your data unless you've got a backup which hasn't been infected. You know, what sometimes happens is, you know, databases get infected months in advance and then they wait to spring on it. So even if you've got a backup, that might still be infected with something. Let's talk about Trojans. You know, this is a famous Greek story, a Trojan horse, where the troops were inside the wooden horse and went marching in and then came out of the horse to attack, didn't they? So it works in a very similar to that. It masquerades as having a legitimate purpose. So let's say looks legit, but hides a nasty surprise. It's normally spreading by email, and somebody is invited to click here, and someone does, and it might look like some legitimate piece of software or a legitimate link, and when they click on it, a program is then initialized. So it's surprising the user by looking at maybe appearing to be something legitimate. Now, what is the difference between a virus and a worm? Okay, so the big thing here is it can replicate itself. Okay, worms can replicate itself. Now, they're installed without knowledge. Without knowledge from the user. The user probably is unaware that they have a worm on their system, and it replicates itself. A virus, just like a normal virus, relies on host file to spread. So typically, you can see lots of exploits with certain PDF files or other things. But the critical difference between here is that a worm can propagate and replicate itself if it's on the system, and then travel over a network. It will look for other devices that are connected via Ethernet cables and can cause real havoc. So that's a bit of an overview there of the different types of malicious software. Now let's look at some exam questions. Computer worms are a type of malware. Right, describe one way that a worm can move from machine to machine. So we've just talked about the fact that a worm can duplicate itself. So you can say worms can make copies of themselves. That's my handwriting. So that's enough for 1 mark. But it's a 2 mark. It's a describe question. So and send to everyone. Let's say email contact list. You can send to everyone on a list, something like that, or previous connections. So yeah, really nasty stuff. You want to have 2 things here to get the 2 marks. They can spread themselves through emails. They don't need the user to knowingly distribute them, unlike viruses. Worms self-replicate without the need for a host file. So if you put that in there, that the examiner will know you understand the difference. It doesn't need a host file and replicate themselves. It's enough for 2 marks. We'll come to this annoying flowchart one in a second. Let's do the easy ones first. Identify the type of malware that attaches itself to other files. So worm doesn't need a host, doesn't need to attach itself, it replicates itself. Keylogger records the strokes. A Trojan could potentially be considered an answer, but a virus is better here because you could say that a Trojan masquerades as another type of file. It pretends. Another file type. So virus is the one. And then let's have a look at this one. Identify 2 types of malware that replicate their code. So what are ones that replicate their code? Well, Keylogger doesn't replicate their code. It simply it records keystrokes. We know, because we've already talked about the worm, so we definitely want to have that one in there. And the virus, which does need to have a host, can also replicate too. So the Trojan, not necessarily, because it's disguised as legitimate software. The Trojan will look like something you actually want. Ransomware prevents access to systems or files, so it's not going to be that, and a keylogger records keystrokes. So let's have a look at this big question here. So anti-malware protects system from viruses. Fine. Draw a flowchart to represent how anti-malware detects a virus in a file and what it does with the file. So the key thing to think about is that there's a database with virus signatures loaded in it. Now this is contingent on if there's a new virus or malicious software database signature. If there's a new virus that's just come out, it might not have had time to upload to or be seen by companies like Norton or AVG or Avast. So this database could potentially be out of date, so we've got to be mindful of that. That's one issue. But what would actually happen? So with a flowchart, we always start and we always end. So we'll put the start symbol in there, terminator. Always want to label your arrows. So we'll have a process, we'll open suspect file, and then we're going to look at the signature. So a signature file will be, is it resembling some code that we've already seen, that we know of, that is a known virus? If they sort of match together, then it's likely we've got a virus. These are all processes so far, and what do we need to do? Essentially, it will need to compare data. You could say bytes from file to signature. Just abbreviate here. I'm going to go up here. Now we need to make a decision. So the decision is going to be either yes or no, isn't it? It's best to go with yes or no rather than true or false, because the questions will always award yes or no. Found match question mark. Well, if it's a no, then we can output to the user file is clean, and then we can stop the program. However, if we do find it, then we can say with a process, put file into a quarantine, so because we want to isolate it in the computer somewhere where it can't damage anything. And then we'll say to the user with an output parallelogram, file is infected, and then finally we can stop. So that's what it would be expecting you to do for those, I think it's 6 marks. But you've got to have, if you want the 6 mark, you've definitely got to have the signature file in there and a comparison being made to the signature file. And there's a decision being made, and then of course the parallelograms denote input and output. So that's how you tackle that question. And thankfully they give you the flowchart symbols if you couldn't remember them. You should remember them. And just out of interest, because we're here, a subprogram looks like this. Subprogram, subroutine, like a function, will look like that, just as an extra one for you. Okay, hopefully that helped. There's quite a lot of detail in that particular video.